Good afternoon, everybody. It's 12:20, so I'm going to go ahead and get started in the hopes that I can get through all of this on time and get you back to your respective places. I'm Becca Werland. I'm an English instructor at Spoon River College, and this is my story. So, I was born and raised in Fayette, which is just a few miles west of here, for those of you who've been out on Route 9 headed west. It's a very tiny little town, more of a village. I grew up in the 80s, as you can tell from my awesome bangs. I had two older brothers, and for the first almost 14 years of my life, I was the baby and the only girl in the family. And then I had a surprise baby sister come along. So I went to Cuba High School, which again is just a few miles from here. Went to Cuba for all of my years of school, and for some reason I was in a really big hurry to grow up. I felt like I couldn't get to adulthood fast enough. So my senior year of high school, I did something that I have come to regret. I tried to speed through it as quickly as I could, and I had enough credits to graduate early, so we didn't have dual credit in those days. So because this was 1998, I got dismissed at 11:05 every day, and I came out to Spoon River College and took college classes starting my first semester of my senior year in high school. I say I come to regret that because I ended up missing out on a lot of really fun things in my senior year of high school. And I'm not really for sure why I wanted to get into the rat race even sooner and have adult responsibilities faster. But I've definitely encouraged my own children now to be a kid as long as you can. But this was my journey, and it obviously all worked out okay in the long run. Unlike Michael, I was actually a really good student in school. and I was good in a lot of subjects. In fact, I won an Outstanding Achievement Award for English and for science when I graduated from high school. And when I started at Spoon River College, that's me as a 17-year-old, that first summer after I'd been in college for about a year, I really wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. The very first class I had as a brand new 17-year-old in the fall of 1998 was with Douglas Oakey. And if you've ever heard of ducklings imprinting on the first human they see, you might consider that happened to me since I managed to return to the nest here to Douglas. My problem at Spoon River College was that I loved everything. I did not have a class I didn't like except for math. But every single class I took made me just want to take more. And I took courses from all across the disciplines. I had philosophy and world religions, and anatomy and physiology and microbiology, and I took every literature course I could get my hands on. And I fully intended to pursue medical research and decided to get a degree in clinical laboratory science. So that was my end game for a long time. And then I took sociology with Michael Maher. And suddenly I decided I was going to change the world and become a political activist of some sort. And I don't know, it lit a passion in me that I had never felt before in education. Even though I loved all of my classes, it made me want to be a better human. And so when I decided where I was going to transfer to, I decided I would declare a major of sociology and anthropology. They did not just have a sociology major. It was sociology and anthropology at the University of Illinois at Springfield. Now, I chose this university mostly because I was afraid to leave home. It was the least expensive, let me reframe that, the most affordable university in Illinois at the time. It was a good school. It was close to home, and they had an awesome class schedule. They had no classes on Fridays, which you guys all take for granted now, but back in my day, we had classes on Fridays. So they had no classes on Fridays, and they had really awesome housing options. So I went down there and decided I would pursue this sociology degree and become a Michael Maher in the world. But I didn't realize that anthropology was actually quite a bit different from sociology. And I really did not like anthropology, which was a surprise to me. And so my second semester, I found myself in a social work course. And I decided maybe I'll pursue social work. That was really on my radar. I really had a heart for helping people. And I felt like this is really what I'm meant to do. But one short semester into the social work degree, I realized I truly was too tenderhearted for working in that field. It really wasn't something that I could sustainably do long term. At this time, I was working full-time for a doctor's office in downtown Springfield. It was an obstetrics and gynecology office. And I worked full-time there and went to school full-time, which was no easy feat, and I was exhausted a lot of the time. I have a very distinct recollection of one day, we were not particularly busy, and they stuck me in a back storage room to clear out old records from prior to 1975. So it was very tedious, monotonous work having to go through each file and check the last time that that patient had visited the clinic and then set it aside and move on. And it was awful. It was excruciating work. And there was this tiny little dusty, dingy window that was letting in some light from outside. And I remember peering out this window and thinking, dear God, am I going to have to be in a job like this for the rest of my life? I want a job where I have the flexibility to just be outside on a beautiful day like this. And all of a sudden, what I remembered was that I had taken a poetry course with Douglas, and he took us outside. When the weather was nice, we would come sit outside on a little grassy knoll out here and read and discuss poetry. And I thought, man, that sounds like an amazing thing. And then I kind of shelved it for a little while, and I went back to my work. But the problem was that I needed to, the semester was coming to an end, I needed to pick my classes for the next term. And I just could not fathom what I was going to do with my life at this point. I'd already changed my major 3 times, and I still liked everything. I felt like anything in the medical field was not something I could pursue anymore because I'd missed the opportunity to take the required math and chemistry. Yes, I could have gone back and taken that, and maybe in hindsight, in another world, I would have. But at this time, I didn't feel like that was an option to me. Because remember, again, I was still in this mindset, I've got to get my life started. I was very young when I was at UIS. I started at age 19. So it wasn't like I was ever behind on my journey here. But I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And one thing that's kind of, I don't know, it sounds ridiculous saying this now, like I should have pieced this together at the time. When I was picking my classes every semester, I had an elective I got to choose. Every semester, I chose an English course because it was my fun class that I allowed myself as a treat to be like, I can get through all of the rest of these classes that I don't really like as long as I have this fun English class to look forward to. And all of a sudden, I realized that I could fill my schedule with only the fun classes if I changed my major. So that's what I did. I went in and I changed my major again. And because I had been taking those fun English classes all along, I actually wasn't behind. All of the courses in sociology and anthropology and social work, those all converted to electives for me. And then everything I had taken for English became my major courses. So I really just needed to go back and take a course that most students take at the very beginning, an introduction to the degree. and I took it towards the end of my degree, but other than that, I was really still on track to graduate. And I was graduating almost a year early. Again, for what reason? So at this time, I had met a young man on campus and fallen in love, and at this point, we'd been living together for about a year. And he was a lieutenant in the Army National Guard and was going to be sent to Fort Rucker, it's no longer Fort Rucker, but Fort Rucker, Alabama, for helicopter flight school. And he wanted me to come with him. I had one course I needed to finish, and we were allowed to take it as an applied study term internship. But I had no place where I could intern, so I had to create my own internship. I got online and I found community colleges down near Fort Rucker, and I contacted the English department down there, and I asked them if I could be a teaching assistant for them and do an unpaid internship for the summer. So they said yes. So for the first time in my life, I did something really brave and moved away. At this point, remember, I chose UIS because it was so close to home, because I could come home every weekend I wanted to. And so I packed up all of my life, and one of my creative writing classmates told me that it was good to be a stranger in a strange place. And that really gave me courage to do something brave like this. And Alabama was a different place for sure. It was a strange but wonderful place. And I ended up at George C. Wallace Community College. If you don't know who George Wallace is, maybe look him up after the presentation. And I had a lovely mentor who helped guide me, and she gave me a lot of freedom. They were summer classes, so it was more relaxed. She gave me a lot of freedom to help teach her composition courses. But really what they did is stick me in a developmental writing lab it was an open lab, and I was basically the monitor and assisting the students with grammar. And it was the kind of class that nobody else really wanted to teach, but I fell in love with it. And I found that I really had a passion for working with students who struggle with writing and need that confidence boost. So that's sort of been my specialty ever since. I really fell in love with that. So it sounds at this point like everything is going perfectly for me, but that's not really the case. That young man and I ended up getting married, and very shortly after I found out I was pregnant, and that's my little boy there. But within a few weeks of us getting married, I found out that my ex-husband, now an ex-husband, was an abusive alcoholic. So if you look around you right now, almost half of the women in here will have been abused by an intimate partner at some point in their life. And it's a staggering, sobering fact, statistic. This was by far the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. So I don't really know that I want to get into too many of the really hard details, but I will say that it started very insidiously with calling me names, not wanting me to have access to money, not wanting me to leave, not wanting me to have relationships with my family. We moved back home to Springfield, and I hoped that things would get better, but they didn't. I felt a lot of shame and embarrassment because I thought that domestic violence doesn't happen to people like me, people who are educated, people who come from good families, people who didn't see that mirrored in their lives. They didn't have their parents behave that way. But it's a lie, and it happens all the time. And it kept me trapped in this situation for a very long time until I couldn't stay there any longer because my ex-husband broke several bones in my face and hurt my son and tried to strangle me. So my family immediately came and packed me up and moved me home and took me back to get an order of protection. And I was able to be free from this for the first time in my life. And I was safe, but I didn't feel safe. And for a very long time, I had to deal with all of these things. I had lost my home, and even though my mother very generously opened her home to me, it was not my home, it was her home. I had a lot of trauma. I had to have reconstructive surgery to fix the bones in my face. I had to deal with a DCFS investigation. There were court cases. Of course, I was unemployed. I was poor, destitute. But the biggest of these was the shame. And I realized that the only way out was through. And my path to getting through was to finish my degree and to get my graduate degree, because if I wanted to teach full-time ever, I needed to have my master's degree. I came out to Spoon River College in November, and I was hoping to just get the name of a professor and some permission to use her name and phone number on a job application. And she took me down to Kurt Oldfield's office. And at this point, Kurt was not the president of the college. He was the dean of instruction. And she introduced us, and she said, I think Becca would make an excellent part-time instructor here. And he said, great, fill out an application. And I did. And they immediately offered me 3 jobs for the next spring, teaching part-time. And that was my foot in the door. And I started at Western, getting my master's degree in English with the idea that I would eventually be standing right here teaching you. So in 2005, I was a brand new instructor, and I fell in love again with a man who I'd known since I was a little girl, and he loved me and he loved my son. And in 2006, after teaching part-time for 3 semesters, I was offered a position as the very first student success coach. The job now held by Catherine was mine at that point. I'm on the far spot over here, and Lisa Dennis is right here at this end. And that was my first full-time job. It was the first time that I had health insurance. It was the first time I was able to get off welfare. They say that home is where your heart is, and Spoon River College is my home. I have been here for almost 20 years, and in that time I have made some beautiful, wonderful friendships and relationships. You can see a lot of them here, and you can see a lot of them in the back of the room. We're sitting right here. People I loved, people I love. I can't imagine ever going anywhere else. But I want you to know that I didn't do this by pulling myself up by my bootstraps, as so many people think that you can do. I did this because I had the support and love of friends and family, but mostly because we have a very strong welfare safety net for women and for children and for anyone who needs it, really, in our state. And I want you to remember that anytime you hear people disparaging those people on welfare, because it could be any of you, and it was me. And not because I thought I would ever be there, but because circumstances put me there, and thank God the safety net was there to catch me and do exactly what it was supposed to do. So I want to leave you with a few words of wisdom that I learned on my way on this journey. The first is that it's never too late to change your course and start over. Whether it's your major or something in your life that you want to start over. You can always do it. It doesn't matter how old you are never too old to start over. We must do the hard things that scare us, especially when we're scared. Sometimes, like today, you have to fake it until you make it, because it's not easy to do things. There's a lot of stuff you're going to encounter in your life that's really hard, but you just put on a brave face and you fake it, and finally that fake courage becomes real courage. And last, we're all figuring it out as we go. Don't be fooled into thinking that anyone in this room next to you has their life figured out, because we don't. Not even me. I don't have things figured out. I change things all the time, and that's okay. And it's okay for you guys to have that uncertainty and to change your mind and to make mistakes and to learn and to grow. I wouldn't be here without the love and support of my family and friends. My greatest achievement is that I survived and I'm thriving. My greatest successes are my children and my husband. Thank you for listening.